I was up in Washington State, so we're in a really remote area. You could actually see Vancouver Island, Canada from where I was at. I put my tent right underneath my blackberry bushes. I'm by myself in this tent, little air mattress. About 3:20 in the morning, I'm laying there and I hear something shaking the top of it. You couldn't see. Something's grabbing the top and shaking it, and then I hear it breathing. And I'm like, okay, this is what I want, so I'm not going to freak out and run. But it was pretty wild, you know. My heart's going crazy.
Boyd, thanks for joining me on Bigfoot Crossroads. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so you're one of those people that started out with a general interest, but actually bought your way into the BFRO. Is that how it works?
Yeah, well, like you pay a fee to attend the expeditions. And then after you've attended one, they give you a real huge discount to go to further ones. And so I finally went to one in New Mexico and met all kinds of cool people here, and that's where I live, and got more and more fascinated in it. And then I went to another one, and then I went to one out in your state in Oklahoma. Then I went to one up in Washington State, and I've been all over. I've been to a lot of official ones and even more unofficial ones, but yeah, BFRO.
So what was that first outing like for you? Was that the first time that you had actually gone out looking for Bigfoot specifically?
Yeah, it was. And so it's about an hour and a half for me. And that's mountains in the Jemez Mountains I attended. And the group that I went with, there's probably about 25 people. I met one of the local investigators, and he passed away several years ago, but he taught me tracking. That really got me into it. And we feel like we found trackways of 3 of them up there. And we had trees being pushed over on both sides of the camp. We had one of the women was using the bathroom in the woods and had something growl at her. Who knows what that was, but the trackways were interesting to me, and that kind of got me into really digging into doing tracking, and I think that's like the key to these things. But yeah, that piqued my interest.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because that's also very similar to what really got me going. I was into tracking. I can't say that like I'm some great tracker or anything like that, but I studied tracking quite a bit. I was raised in a family of hunters, and outdoorsmen. So I knew a little bit, but like tracking seems to really open the doors to this whole thing.
Yeah, like I'm exactly like you. I'm not a certified tracker or anything. It's just I look for patterns, and I also have kind of learned, you do it kind of early in the morning, so you don't have direct overhead sunlight, or in the afternoon, so you have an angle. And some of the thermal equipment that we have, you can actually use it if it only has like one-time zoom. You can actually track at night using it. You're not really looking for a heat signature of the animal that preceded you, but you're looking at like a variation using that thermal, and it's pretty cool. But pattern like heel, toe, the metatarsal break, how they lift off to go over like an object, like a downed log up onto a rock, the material that they're stepping on.
If just your average person who doesn't know anything about tracking comes across a footprint in the mud somewhere or the dirt or whatever, and they think that it might be a Bigfoot track, what are some key things for them to look for?
I think what you're looking for in my regard too, and one thing is bears are so often misconstrued, bear track. I look at like a bear track has almost like your hand, it's like an arched toe print.
Right.
And look at your own foot, and your foot has an angled toe, your toes on your feet are angled, not arched. It's like a right angle, left, right. That's what you very first thing you look at. Also, a lot of bear prints are step in, so it looks like a big footprint, and you see that a lot. Like people post it up. So that'd be one thing to discount something you're seeing as a bear track. With the angle, the lift in the middle of it, like, so if you got a really great print, say in sand or mud or something like you said, like there should be a lifted part in the middle, because they flex somewhat as they step, I believe. But it's not always true. I think their foot is really flexible, so it can be flat. It could be, it can kind of pull its front of its foot in the difference to the rear to get traction. And don't always discount. It doesn't have to always be a big footprint. It could just be a heel, the toes. They're really flexible, I think, in their feet.
Yeah. I also hear a lot of times, the age-old question, why is it that you only find one print? It's always just one print. And I try to tell people that you might only see one clear footprint, but there's still other tracks there. There's other impressions there. You just have to know how to look for them.
Oh, yeah. Like, so you can imagine that, the material is changing all the time. Unless it's going down a beach or, a big mud flat, it's not that where in that point it's not changing. But, going through a forest floor, you go from like, all kinds of stuff. Look for broken sticks in the track, look for knocked over vegetation, look as it passed by, did it move something one way, move something the other way. Always keep kind of, they say always keep looking up, not so much that they're going to be swinging from the trees, but as they pass under things, they can snag hair, they can break off a branch. That you got to look like for a pathway. That's what I look at.
So what is it about this subject that captured your interest?
I don't know. It's like a big mystery, and it's even grown more, as a mystery. But as you hear more and more, information about it, your friends have encounters, footage and things they get, and it just keeps drawing you in. So we're really, really trying to kind of get more and more to the bottom of it. But I mean, it's like mysteries. I love it.
So you're one of the select few people in the world that have seen these things, have had your own encounters. We were talking a bit yesterday about that, or the day before, I think. But
yeah,
what was that first moment like whenever you realized, like, holy crap, these things are real?
Yeah, it's like we were trying to, as a group, we were trying to get these things to follow us and just be curious about us, because that's kind of what they do. And we're the show in town, so to speak, out in the middle of nowhere. And the things, we made a maneuver where our group, we just, at the count of 3, we all dove off into the woods off of a pretty wide, like, gravel road in the middle of the night. And then we looked back with night vision, not thermal, but night vision. And these two really lanky, I'm going to call them Bigfoot, because it wasn't a human and it wasn't, a monkey or anything like that. They stepped out onto the road. Like, where did they go? Kind of that's, but then they immediately kind of saw what we did and they jumped back and they were gone. So to me, that was like, like, it's what I wanted. And it's like, wow, it's like, What a moment. We're passing this night vision around, so everybody can get a look. But I just had it for like a second, 2 seconds, focus, boom, gone. I'm like, luckily I was the last one to have it, but they were out there for a moment looking at us, and then we saw, they kind of paralleled and kind of caught up to us, and you could see the eye shine from them. So they were like wanting to know where we were. That was my very first time.
So whenever you saw them, that's whenever they retreated back into the woods.
Oh yeah. It was like, oh shoot, boom, they're gone. But they paralleled us, and then there's a really dark, open area right across from where we were kind of off. Say we're off to the one side of the road, and then the other side of the road, there's this kind of camp area back in there, but it's really dark, tree covered camp, and we know it in the daytime, but it was middle of the night, and you could see these eyes, like I'm gonna say like little red dots, like blinking and like floating through there, like they're walking. And at that time we didn't have thermal gear. It was like quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And that was in Washington State where that was.
Oh, wow.
And then we continued to walk. And one thing is, it's kind of like, these kind of unwritten rules. Don't point, don't everybody turn and look. And
right.
So I had my daughter with me, and she was like 14, I believe. That was her first expedition. And she's on 2 or 3, but I got her into it anyway too. But, we're walking along, and I look up to the left after this. We'd gone by that camp, so we're about another 1/8 of a mile along this road, and look up, and there's a scree field, kind of like broken rock, like maybe 150 feet of this broken rock going up to this tree line. He looked up at the top of the tree line, and I see those red eyes looking at me. And I told her, hey, slowly turn to your left with your head. Don't turn your body. And what do you see? I see it's right at the base of those trees, like it's laying down looking at us, And there was like enough ambient, opaque light. Must have been like moon or something to kind of see that, the difference in the terrain. That would have been a great one if we had thermal. And anyway, that road was closed. It was like a washed out road, so you could only walk it, so it wasn't like nobody's really back there,
And I've never encountered anybody that like has glowing eyes and lays down on the ground to watch people.
That was, and like you kind of say, what is that? Like, why is that? How does that happen without like a reflective, something from starlight or a moon or something? Somebody shining a flashlight at it. Like, how is it like got energy in its eyes or something? I don't know. And I've seen it more than once, where, but those were red, and other times I've seen like yellow and kind of greenish, and animals have that too. So I don't know.
Do you think it's reflecting light very strongly, or do you think it's actually producing its own light?
I don't know. I don't believe there's any animal that can produce its own light at all, unless it's like a bioluminescence, and like an ocean animal or something like that, or a firefly, or fireflies don't exist up there. I don't know. It's bizarre. And how dark it is. Like you're looking into something you can't see anything in. So you can't see a moon peeking through in the base of the tree area. It's just so dense, forest there. But you see 2 sets of eyes like blinking and moving through there, like floating through there. It's like that's so strange.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? I know we're kind of jumping ahead in the conversation, but like, what are your thoughts on what these things are? Do you think they're just some undiscovered primate or some sort of relic human?
I believe they're kind of a relic hominid, relic human. In some ways, I guess it's like a crossbred type thing. It's probably evolved in some places and changed and morphed here and there. The fact that you hear them communicating, there's like with vocal, you occasionally, I've had the privilege of hearing that in Oklahoma, but and there's recordings of it. We've got recordings from our group up in Washington State of them like kind of singing. It's kind of like and making these similar sounds, and they're catching it in different areas of Washington State. Kind of real similar. So I mean, and then they can, some animals will, mock what you do. Like crows and stuff like that will mock like whistles, but these things will mock all kinds of calls that you make to them, car doors slamming, weird sounds. That's intelligence to me. So I think it's above a level of just a basic ape or something.
Somebody was messaging me last night about hearing a metallic sound, and that's something that's come up quite a bit. Have you ever heard that?
I have not personally heard that, but I've heard recordings of it that friends of mine have captured, and they've talked about hearing it. I mean, it sounds, I think we talked about this too a couple of days ago, but you hear almost sounds like sheet metal or something.
Yeah.
Try as I might make, I can't even really do a great Sasquatch howl or whatever. But I don't think I can make a sound of sheet metal like out of my voice. I don't know, maybe they have some sheet metal laying around and they just whack it, who knows?
Yeah, carrying it around with them everywhere they go.
or they know where it is, and they go to it.
Have you noticed any differences in like behavior compared to where you live in New Mexico to like Oklahoma or Washington?
Oklahoma, like we spoke about before, was like a lot of vocalizations that were like these things are whooping and hollering across one area to the other, to a river bottom, that type of thing. So they're like kind of communicating. Here, you just hear whoops. I've heard tree knocks. They push trees over. I think that's kind of that's everywhere, but like an intimidation, like to get you to get out of there. It's like I don't know what it would be, territorial kind of defense or something. Washington State, howls, whoops. They set off and then coyotes get going. Set off here, coyotes get going. I never heard coyotes in Oklahoma. I'm sure they're there, but when I was there, I didn't hear them going off. But it's kind of like this big cavalcade. Texas too, we heard that. And even cows were going off there. So it's like everything's yelling. We have some wild recordings of that. Yeah. My buddy got down in Texas, like north of Houston. And it's like, what the heck? I sound like you're in the middle of the jungle. And I'm trying to get a recording that another investigator here passed away several years ago too. And she had a really good recording in this area in New Mexico called Rozumadero. And I'm trying to get her son to find the recording, but it sounded like you're in the Brookfield Zoo or something, like, and all the monkeys are screaming at each other. That's that was what Oklahoma sounded like to me. That they're going back and forth, like, I'm here, I'm there, I'm over here.
Have you ever been in a situation where they ran you out?
I was close to one, but I wanted to be there, so I didn't leave. Yeah, but it's wild. Like, I've told this story online before, but I was up in Washington State, so we're in a really remote area. You could actually see Vancouver Island, Canada, and the Straits of Juan de Fuca from there, from where I was at. And I put my tent right underneath my blackberry bushes, and I go, well, the year before they go, oh, don't go around there. That's where they pushed a tree over. They're moving us out of there. I go, okay, that's where I'm putting my tent. So I'm by myself in this tent, little air mattress. It's a real low little backpack type tent. It's actually a tent that you put in the bed of a truck, but I had a had it just on the ground. So it's maybe 3.5 feet up off the ground, the top of it. About 3:20 in the morning, I'm laying there and I hear something shaking the top of it. You couldn't see. Something's grabbing the top and shaking it, and then I hear it breathing. And I'm like, okay, this is what I want, so I'm not going to freak out and run. But it was pretty wild, My heart's going crazy. I didn't move, and it kept doing it. About every 20 minutes it would do that. And I think it's trying to get me out of there, but it wasn't being rough about it. It was just like, hey, get up, I want to scare you out of here. But it wasn't like, I think it probably like just start dragging the tent away,
Yeah.
So after about the 5th time, it's getting to be about 5 something in the morning. Without me making any movement, I'm just laying there. And so I whistled, kind of a lame whistle, and I grunted. First I grunted, then I whistled. I go, this little whistle. And then I hear it walk away. It's like crunch, crunch, crunch. I'm like, oh man, that's wild. Still pitch black out. I'm like, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to sit here, again. And then I kind of drifted off back to sleep because I wasn't going to be able to jump out and see anything. And I wasn't going to light it up with a light or anything. I just kind of am against that because I want it to interact. And then it just had started to get a little bit of light, like 6 something. And I hear my whistle, like to my left shoulder. I hear just this lame little whistle. I'm like, oh, wow. That's kind of what I did. So, and then I hear my lame ass whistle coming immediately for my right shoulder, like not too far away. Well, that's it. And I jump up and I'm unzipping, getting out of there, standing in my underwear out in the foggy morning.
In the middle of a blackberry
nothing.
thicket.
You can't see any. Yeah, you can't. So I was below it. I was on it's a power line road, but the blackberries are like right above me, like this whole big line of them. So I'm looking around. I can't see anything because it's foggy. I'm like, okay, you got me. Kind of like I dress and I have the group's maybe about 800 yards away. Their main base camps or their remote base camp was up there. So this is on a BFRO expedition. So I walk down there, everybody's sleeping. Nothing, I had a partner of mine. He was supposed to be watching me. And he's sound asleep in my rental car and it's all fogged up. You couldn't see out even if he was wide awake. And he's maybe 150 yards away from me. That was like my closest real person. But that was wild. I was in one situation like you just asked, like where I was frightened, and that was in Washington State. And I can't say this is Bigfoot. Might have been a bear or something, but there's this area that we go to, and one of the areas is called the playground. And I'm like, okay, how did it get that name? So it's this real dark, all kinds of big timber that's dropped down, swampy, low area. So I was out walking around and I hear this like this crashing sound coming from that area. So I start to look in there, and it's just like something ripping bark off of something, just going crazy in there. Like I think it's looking for insects, grubs, something like that, in the bark of these down trees. And and this is daylight, like 11 o'clock in the morning. I just couldn't make myself go in there. And I was just afraid of it. That's like the only time. I had no phone, no camera, no audio gear. I was like walking around looking for tracks. Kind of, I was finishing that, and I got afraid of that. There's probably a bear in there, though. There's bear tracks around, so to me, it's probably a bear. If you logic it out, but I was just afraid. Even as a bear, is that going to see me and come after me?
Yeah. Do you find any like stick structures or anything in New Mexico?
I haven't really seen that here. I've gotten quite a few reports coming with BFRO investigator where people send in pictures, but it's areas that are close to, a popular camping area. So I think it's just, it's probably more human related or a kid doing it or something. But Washington State, I've seen in the middle of nowhere ones. I think New Mexico, I've spotted some in remote areas. I've like a couple. They're more like a teepee type thing, like put together with branches. And then at one point in New Mexico, come to think of it, we were walking and we're a pretty really remote area, and you see this kind of a constructed, look like a blind, like where you could lay low behind it and watch a game trail. But I don't know if hunters would put that together. Maybe they would, but it looked constructed. And then Washington State, we saw in the middle of nowhere, we see all these pretty big, long branches, like I guess they're a pine, but they're all laid up against a tree. And it was an entrance to this meadow area. And then next to it, there's a little set of them, like I'm teaching Junior how to do a stick structure, and here's mine, kind of. One was huge, like, the stuff would be difficult for two people to put that up there, and I just don't see a human doing that. It wouldn't be productive for anything,
I mean, I've seen enough to where it's like, okay, well, a lot of these things are most likely human made, but then there's also situations where it's, okay, well, this would have to be a human or a Bigfoot, and the odds of it being human are just really far out there, because I'm in a situation where, like, why would a person do that here?
Yeah.
But I always wondered, like, where did the connection between structures and Bigfoot come from? In the history of Bigfoot research, I don't really know the source of that when we decided that, like, oh, this X formation is from a Bigfoot, or this teepee is from a Bigfoot.
I don't know. My opinion is, and I kind of asked the same question, but and logically you have to, but like they're so big, like some of the material that they use to, or whatever they is, what they use it to build out with is like, I mean, it's such a big log, like you're in the middle of nowhere and maybe you have like 6 of your friends and go, hey, let's put this together. Here, get the other end. Now we're going to need 4 people, that's weird, like you could get hurt, it just doesn't make any sense for the effort. Most people don't go out in the woods and build like teepees of big, huge branches. I've seen weird stuff like where there's a big rock on a stump, and everybody's, oh, that's got to be a Bigfoot picked up that rock. And then other people say, no, I know people that are in lumber industry, and they have these lifters that'll pull up these big logs to put them into the trucks, and that they play around and they just grab a rock and put it up on a big stump, like using that tool. It's just kind of fun, so, you can say, oh, well, no human could lift that up. Well, yeah, but it's right off a road. So somebody with this equipment could just grab a big rock and put it on there, for fun. You gotta go with what's logical, first, middle of nowhere, big structure, you go, okay, and I've seen a lot of tree twists. Have you ever seen that, Matt?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I've seen that where it leads to a trail, like a access point that we've had activity at. Like there'll be like 3 or 4 really old ones and they're pretty big, it'd be like a 4-inch diameter pine, and the thing got twisted, Yeah. I don't know what kind of thing could do that. You want to say, well, big storm, swirling wind, that could break over a branch or something like that. But twisting it, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I live in Oklahoma, so we're used to big, twirly, swirling winds. And I've seen every kind of wind damage you can think of. I've seen, breakovers from ice and snow and all that. And yeah, it will twist some stuff up, but it looks completely different in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep. We have mountain storms and stuff here too. And there's, like dust devils, they call them tempesturas here. Like, to me, I call it a little tornado, but
yeah,
I wasn't born here. But I think. But when you see like no other damage anywhere, and then you see like 3 or 4 of these things like right at a trailhead, like what, kind of it's kind of weird. I mean, and I think if you're marking territory, like what other animals do that, besides us,
I mean, that's how it always kind of came across to me, was something, showing off, like a big alpha male or whatever, saying, look what I can do, and the thicker the tree, the bigger the tree, the more powerful the twist. It kind of get the message across, I think.
Yeah. Like, laying down my territory, here. And one thing I've seen here, which is kind of cool, is rock stacks that are, big stuff, and it's kind of like it's not really slate, but they have this like fossilized sandstone that they call it. I forget what they call it. Flagstone, they call it. And they use it for like walkways and stuff like that. But we found it all stacked up, and they flipped over pieces of it, and kind of made an area where they marked. But I think they were going after, by moving some of these things, and they're probably 300-pound rocks at least. And I think they were going for like baby mice and like rodent nests and insects and stuff underneath where they're at. Because you could see the old nest stuff from mice. They have a animal here called wood rat. I don't know if you guys probably have them too.
Yeah.
And they're a pretty big animal, and they'll nest under stuff like that, and that'd be a protein source and not super hard to get to, and you could grab it if you knew where they were.
I remember there being like a report of somebody watching them hunting under rocks for something, and they thought it was like mice and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know as a kid, like, we had a place at the lake, and I go exploring all the time at the lake. And one of my favorite pastimes was hunting for crawdads, along the shoreline. And whenever you're sitting there hunting for crawdads under rocks, you lift up a rock and look for the crawdad, and you set it off to the side, and you end up with like a pile of rocks, as you're just like moving them out of the way. And so that might explain some of the rock stackings that people find, is just them moving the rocks out of the way.
You'll see like some articles, oh, look at this cairn. It's like a stack of rocks. It must be Bigfoot, but then also hikers will mark. And I've done it myself. Like you're heading off down somewhere, and you want to kind of remember where you went. You'll stack some sticks a certain way, or put a little arrow in the trail with some sticks. So, oh yeah, I came by this spot, if you're not using a GPS, it's, it's not always that, but real heavy stuff, like, something weighs like 300 pounds and it just got flipped over.
Yeah.
Like no human's going to be doing that. Like, what are they looking for? Lost Spanish gold or what? I don't know.
I mean, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the other impactful sightings and encounters you've had?
So I had an expedition in Colorado. This is not super far from like Steamboat Springs, kind of out a little bit to the west, central and west in Colorado. And we're at this BFRO expedition 2 of my friends put on, and there's this little lake. There's the main camps right up above the lake. We have a big fire pit there for the group, and they'd had a big community fire in the evening, and it was breaking up. It's about 10, 11 at night, and another researcher had a thermal, like a FLIR, and I had a different brand, and we're kind of comparing them, and we're looking at this tree right by the main base camp fire pit, and there was a hole in the tree where you'd seen birds and stuff flying in and out of it. So it was like a nest inside the trunk of the tree with this little hole. So we're looking at the trunk, you know, because it has the heat from these baby birds that are in there, and birds are nesting in there. Check out mine. Here, look at mine. And then I had mine back in my hand. I'm not recording because I'm just looking. And I hear this tree go over on the other side of the fire. So I'm at one side of the fire, maybe not too far away from it, maybe 25 feet away from the fire. And it's all died down. There's maybe a couple people standing around still, but everybody's gone. So I wheel towards that sound, and right on the other side of the fire, this thing comes down out of these low bushes, hits this trail that kind of goes off away from the fire, and it's booking, and it's on all fours, and it looks like the rump of a gorilla, and it's moving, like probably going 30, 40 miles an hour, like full speed, and then it dives off again back in kind of where the direction it had come. So it came out from the left, went straight, and went off to the left. And so, and I don't know, like, I was like, if I had that recorded, that'd be great, because it was only maybe 30, 40 feet away from me when that happened. And it's the crash of the tree was not where that was. It was like farther away. So to me, it was like, you know, this is like, it's kind of crazy sounding, but say there's two of these things watching the camp. And one of them gets in real close, you know, hey, look, bro, look how close I'm at. And then the other one messed with it and pushed the tree over so everybody like wheeled to look. And it was like, oh crap, you know, like that's kind of like how it felt to me, you know.
That's crazy that you say that, because I was going to say the exact same thing. Like me and my cousin used to always like mess with one another and try to get, you know, each other caught up or, you know, busted trying to be sneaky, you know. And I mean,
that's funny.
Whenever I was investigating, we'd call it counting coup, where, you know, they would come in and see how close they could get. And I think that's why they like slap houses and things like that, or shake tents, you know, just showing off for one another. You know, a bunch of teenagers out there bored trying to have fun, mess with the humans or whatever.
Yeah, the Indians did it ages ago. And then if you look at some of these like films of like ape behavior, they go up and slap each other and run off, you know. Like, yeah. It's fun too. It's like a game, you know. And I've had experience where I believe it wasn't me personally, but there was a guy that had a tent and he had a dog in it, and the dog's like real quiet, you know, wouldn't bark at anything. He just notices the dog's like staring at the side of the tent from inside of the tent. So they're sleeping in there, and the dog's sitting up on its haunches, like looking at the side of the tent. So in the morning, he said, yeah, the dog was like keying on something. He never growls or barks. It was like a German Shepherd too. It's just a really calm dog. And we don't at all let dogs come on BFRO expeditions pretty much, unless it's something like that. It's really unusual that it was allowed. And so then I look, and it's all the grass next to the tent right where that dog was looking is all matted down, like almost like about an 8-foot radius. It stinks like the grass. I don't really see hair or anything in it. And then I saw where it's all matted, and then it goes out underneath these, like a low hanging group of trees to come into our camp area. And they had these little reeds that were growing, like about the size of a pencil. And those are all broken over at about 18 inches off the ground. So I'm thinking whatever came in, like broke those off. There had to be kind of crawling, you know, like spider crawl or whatever they want to say. And then it just sat there next to the tent, you know, like in this nested kind of grass, you know, and, you know, probably knew the dog was in there. You know, that's weird, you know, but that's close. I mean, it was probably three feet away from the tent. Then there's a bunch of people camping there, you know.
That's just nuts how they'll come in and get so close like that for something that, spends its entire existence trying to avoid us. Then you have these situations where they come in super close to campers, and it's almost like, again, that they're trying to get away with stuff.
Yeah, here's another one in the same. I don't know if it happened the same night, but the main base camp was like an oval, kind of a cleared out area with kind of trees all around this oval. People are camped all around the oval. Kind of entryway area. There was a guy in this, probably like a Chevy, one of the S10 type trucks, like a small one, like a Toyota Tacoma kind of size bed, had a camper shell on the back, and he had the tailgate down and the camper shell's lid open, and he's sleeping in there with his head to the back of the truck, so he's looking out. And then on the back of it, he had an easy up shade thing over the back of it. He had a table, a Coleman stove, a gallon of water. And so he's looking kind of into his easy up, and then beyond that's trees, right? So he's right on the edge of the tree line. If something wakes him up, he opens his eyes. It's dark, but he can see some. And there's this head next to the 5-gallon water jug looking. It's a 1-gallon water jug, and this head's bigger than the 1-gallon water jug, and it's squatted down, so the head's right next to this jug. And he's like, oh wow. He's like looking at this, trying not to move. And then one of the things at the expedition, this is funny, there was Matt Moneymaker was actually at that one, and he was giving everybody like, here's what you want to look for, here's what you want to do, and if something happens, make sure you note the time. So this guy, it's his first expedition. He's like, Daryl, he has his little Timex watch or whatever that glows, and he touches it so it glows his face. And then this thing, like, its eyes get real big, and then it stands up and it's underneath this guy's easy up, and it walks out, and it has to duck to go out. And luckily this guy looked like at this thing's shoulder, and it brushes this branch that was hanging down as it left. And it was, it couldn't even stand up in the easy up without hitting its head. And the shoulder was at about close to 8 feet.
Wow.
That's how big that thing was. So imagine a gallon jug.
Yeah.
I guess that's a little bit bigger than our head, probably. And it was bigger than that. So probably twice as big as a human's head. That's his estimation. But that was all these other people camping right around there, and it came right into that, And he didn't have any food out or anything, but I don't think so. But
and like underneath the awning.
Yeah, he was inside underneath it, but it's open on all sides. But it went in there, and it's kneeling down, kind of looking at him across this table. It's on the other side of the table with its head beside a jug. It's like, whoa,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You mentioned Matt Moneymaker, and I'm not going to try to have you speak on his behalf or anything, but I noticed recently with all the drone stuff going on in New Jersey that he had posted on Twitter about himself and other members of the BFRO have seen basically orbs in the woods numerous times, and it was well known and all this, which kind of surprised me because he never really goes down that route or talks about that sort of thing. Have you experienced orbs yourself, or what's your thoughts on the whole orb thing?
Yeah, I have. And like as recently as we had an expedition here last fall up in northern New Mexico. I'm in northern New Mexico, but this is way up by the Colorado border. Saw like orange teardrop shaped orb and top of these two mountains, like once it appeared and then another time. And then they've had the Indians up there, Native Americans, tell us about these things floating around through the camp. Here's a little sidelight to the first story I told you about seeing my my first sighting, and that was with the night vision at really close to the time when we looked at those two thin Bigfoot that jumped back in or went back into the woods. We're sitting there still looking, and this big orange kind of flash happened right by us. It's not, I couldn't say it was an orb, but it was like this big orange flash. And I'm like, what the heck was that? And there's probably 8 people there. It's like this blinding flash of orange.
Like a camera flash type brightness or a lighter, or how bright was it?
Like say if it was an orb, like basketball size sort of to start with, and it just goes and disappeared like in a poof. But like we're all focused down, looking down that road, and it just happened amongst us, And then I asked Native American people, like, what is that? Like what is in your lore or your legend or your knowledge? What is that? And somebody said it's like how they see you. It's a mechanism they can use to see you, like an orb is or a flash. It's like a vision they can see you. This is what they said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, because that was really wild. And that's the only time I had anything real close to me. And I haven't really seen. Now, I personally didn't see those orbs at my expedition. This is some of my attendees saw it, and the natives talking about it too in that same area. I have not seen it. I've seen it in photographs, and I think it was in a whole completely different regard. It was actually on a ghost tour, like in New Orleans with my daughter, and we took pictures of this. It was like, it used to be an orphanage or something like that had a fire and children died or something. They said, take pictures and you'll see orbs. And there was a lot of them on the pictures. Some of that's dust, some of it's real deal. It's just weird.
Yeah. It's just kind of crazy to me that it wasn't until fairly recently that people started really talking about orbs all the time. But I mean, there's something that it's like they've been videoed, they've been photographed, so many people see them. It's obviously something, they exist. We just don't have any idea what it is. But it's interesting that people connect them to Bigfoot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I mean, in that regard, that flash, and I think somebody said they thought it was like an orange ball, that's, remember my group people like talking about it. It'd be interesting to see if they all remember that and what they thought of it. And some of these UFO reports that these pilots see are like these round objects that are clear with like a box inside of it. And I used to live in California, like Southern California, and I lived up in the mountains in Malibu, up Santa Monica Mountains, and one of my neighbors goes, "Hey man, there's this UFO over there." Like, so go over. I actually got a telescope and put it on it. It's really hard to get it into the telescope because it's just this ball, but it was like shimmering and it looked like it was metal. It was out over the San Fernando Valley. I don't think it was a balloon or anything like that, but it was round. It wasn't. I can't say it was like a lighted orb or anything because it was in the daytime, but this thing's kind of shimmering. Looked to me like some kind of wild-looking metal ball,
There's a lot of reports of like UFOs coming out of the ocean right there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think off of Southern Cal. I did a lot of sailing and stuff with friends out there, and we'd go out to Catalina, and I never really had anything that I could see like that. But I know one of our investigators up in, friends up in Washington State, she was in the Navy, and she was on watch. I don't know what kind of ship she was on. She's on the fantail, the back of it, and she sees something come out of the water, and she brought it to the attention of people. People saw it, and they go, "What is that?" He goes, it's nothing. Okay, so I mean, yeah, they definitely have that happening.
That's crazy, man. So what are some of the stories, that you've heard from New Mexico? Because I know, like I was telling you, I've talked to quite a few people from the area, and there's just all kinds of crazy stories out of that state. Just the Four Corners region in general. What are some of the better stories that you've heard?
Some of it's been, on media, but like these things raiding the trash behind like casinos that have like buffets in them up there in the Navajo Nation. It's on camera, but they won't release it. I think Moneymakers talked about that. My partner in my expedition, he's actually a retired police officer in a Native American nation. He owns about a almost 500 acre ranch, like on the reservation. That's where we have our expedition. He has a fence line around it that was electrified to keep elk and deer out, because he raised alfalfa in these big fields, like on that property. And he was running the wires one day, like personally inspecting them with the power turned off. So he's like pulls up in a quad, 4-wheeler, walking the line, going over these hills and dales behind trees, rocks. And he walks out, and there's one like 12 feet away from him, and it's kneeled down, plucking the wire. This is a Bigfoot, daytime, 4 in the afternoon. It looks at him, he looks at it, and then he went catatonic, like just falls over. And this is a cop, he used to worked with the DEA. He was in customs, all kinds of wild work. He did firefighting, all kinds of things. He lays on the ground, and he's just looking at it. He wants to scream and run. And then he kind of rolls away from it, like down the hill to get away from it. But he said, I couldn't move, more than just trying to roll away. I'm like, and it stood up, lifted the wire, and it's not barbed wire. It's just a stranded wire, and there's probably like 8 of them, and it goes about 6 feet high to keep these deer and elk out. And it's not electrified. It's turned off at that time. So it pulls the wire up and steps through it like it was a human and walks away. So it was on the inside of the wire where he was, and it walks away from him.
And he specifically said it was female.
Yeah, that's right. He said female, probably 7 feet, 400 pounds, 450, his estimation. He knows game. There's a lot of elk, deer, horses, cattle all around there. So he knows that. He's been there. He's now in his 70s. I think at that time he was like in his 50s when that happened. He'd seen 2 other times driving at night. He'd seen them. And they're all different, though. The other ones look like some old man with long hair standing there, like naked, middle of nowhere. Other stories are from the Chusca Mountain area, like it's north of Gallup, New Mexico. There's a big line of mountains that goes in between Arizona and New Mexico, and these are coming from Navajo people. And these 2, they were girls then, now they're adults, but when they're telling the story, they were traveling with their parents, coming back from a fair in the summer from Arizona somewhere, like a Native American fair get together. They're driving at night, all the windows down in this station wagon, and something jumps right in front of the station wagon. The dad has to slam on the brakes to the point of skidding. The one lady's telling me they were about, I guess, 10 years old in that range. And she's in the back seat. She could smell the burning rubber. And the one in the front seat between the 2 parents sitting on the bench seat sees this back of this animal that had kind of jumped down in front of the car and is kind of squatted down. And it stands up and walks off the road. She goes, later on when I was a little older, we went on a field trip to Albuquerque. When we went to the zoo, our school group, and it looked just like the back of one of the gorillas, the silverback gorillas that was at the zoo. And that's what she said. And she was about 10. And she was in her probably 30s or 40s when she was telling me that story. Other ones are from that Four Corners area, like these things coming and raiding people's gardens and fruit trees and taking pet food out of bowls and water. And we did a night activity where we put it on film, put it on YouTube for the whole night. We had this thermal camera and we're running it up there in like November, I believe, with a friend of mine up there. And there was these houses up on this bluff overlooking the San Juan River. And there's all these river bottoms, and it's a pretty big area of river bottom. And I go, hey, what do you know? He says, well, these other Bigfoot researchers came, and they put cameras down there. Oh, really? And then right after they put the cameras, like the next night, it sounded like somebody was running a bulldozer down there, knocking trees down. And, I was afraid even to go look, it was like, something was like upset with them putting the cameras down there, like just pushing stuff over. And we went down in there and it was just a big jumble, but at night they're knocking over trees and stuff.
What do you think the deal is with that? Do you think they know what cameras are somehow?
Yeah, because I think they're triggering them maybe, or something's happening where they get to see that IR spectrum. I don't think they might have smelled it. They probably saw the people putting them up too. It's an encroachment of a territory. I don't know if they really know what the technology is, and we got to avoid that.
Right.
I don't know if I could take it to that level. I just think it's like maybe they worry about it, But that was kind of wild that they're talking about that all that's going on and they can hear it, but they're afraid to go down there.
Yeah.
I'm not going down there after that, Like I talked to you. Did you interview Brenda Harris, I believe?
Yeah. I've talked to her a couple times over the years.
Yeah, she talked to you about the thing running beside her car. And they're going like 45, 50 miles an hour on the highway, and this thing's running beside the car.
Yeah.
That was more like skinwalker-ish type things, not so much Bigfoot, they said. But
yeah.
Anyway.
All those lines start to get kind of blurred whenever you start talking about the stuff going on out there.
Yeah, there's like, the skinwalker thing's like a taboo thing. And there's also these areas across from that river that I was speaking about before, the San Juan River, that they call it the hogback, and there's like caves and things out there. It's real. There's no people live over there for some reason. They're all on one side of the river, but not the other, and that they don't like going in there. And there's been videos of like eye shine coming out of those kind of, they're not really caves, so to speak, but they're like, like depressions into the rock. And I'm sure she probably spoke about that too. But I think they live down in those bottoms. They can get their water. They can hide out in there. They can go back up in that hogback where nobody lives.
Yeah, she definitely believes that the river is like a source of a lot of this stuff. Well, a lot of it seems to focus around the river and kind of branch out from there.
Yeah, if you know the area, it's like logic would be the water. Logic would be the residents around there. They call it Fruitland for a reason. There's lots of orchards and stuff. It's not super prolific, but it's there. And there's food and raidability. You can take family pets, sheep. There's other animals that are going to go down by those rivers. I think rabbits and rats and birds and all the protein sources from there, plus the food.
So did you say you're getting ready to host another outing out there?
Yeah, we're doing one in August. You can come in as early as Monday. I think it's the 11th of August. and it goes through the following Monday. So there's an expedition, the BFRO expedition in Colorado, that if anybody wanted to attend the Colorado one, you could just right as soon as that one ends, you could come down to New Mexico. So that's just kind of why we get started on Monday. Officially, it's Thursday through Sunday, but you can come as early as Monday if you want.
And they can find all that information on the BFRO website, I assume.
Yeah, BFRO.net, and there's all the expeditions and stuff. And they're a lot of fun. They're, you got to pay a little bit of money, but ours, we have food provided, like 3 meals. We have a lot of researchers will come on it, especially ours because it's so unique. It's going to be on a Native American reservation, which is a privilege to be able to do it and have the permission to go on there. Really, really cool area that's like our main base camp area. The ranch area is over 7,000 feet. Trees and really cool rock formations. You'll find old pottery and things up in these canyons that are there. There's old Puebloan ruins in there, like Anasazi style ruins. There's just meeting the people there, and they open up about what's going on. Even the game wardens came last year, and they're talking about their experiences. It was just amazing. And it's like once you leave there, you feel like they're part of your family. They're just super genuine people that their lifestyle and everything's just family oriented. And that's what we're going to do. BFRO.net if you're interested. And any of them, really, anywhere in the country. If you guys do it, it's not all crazy Finding Bigfoot TV show type thing. It's meeting people that are totally into the subject. You'll get to probably play with some really cool gear that people have. Dip your toe in it or jump right in like I did. And it's a fun way to get involved in it.
What sort of stuff do you have planned specifically for your trip? Like what kind of things are you going to be doing?
We'll be doing night walks and looking tracks. There's a canyon that's up off our main base camp that we're kind of leaving sanitary. Like we'll go in there, but we're not going to camp in it. So we think that's an approach place that they come down. There's a lot of acorns and stuff in there, and we've heard sounds. There's a resident bear that lives up in there too. We'll have audio listening at night with like parabolic, and just do night walks with calls. We had callbacks last year. They're pretty cool callbacks. The thing about the expeditions, you don't have to like go out and hike all night. You can sit at camp and listen. You can do literally nothing, just listen to the stories. You can really get involved and do stuff all day, all night. We'll have a whole bunch of different activities. Kind of that's mostly it's just interaction with other people. That's probably 80% of it at a BFRO expedition, learning and using equipment, and then having people show you their techniques of what they're doing to look for these things. We do drives. We drive around at night, drive around in the day, go check out the whole area. There's all kinds of ponds and stuff, so we look for tracks in those. Because the water isn't like just everywhere. It's a little bit more spread out, but they're going to come to water, so you can check those areas out.
Boyd, thanks for coming on here and sharing some of your insight and your stories. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, man. We're going to have to keep in touch.
Oh, yeah, Matt. You're welcome out here anytime. And definitely it's a cool area. Colorado's cool. And my bud's up in Washington State, too. That's another family of mine, too. And we got some great projects going on up there that you could interview those guys. But they developed a new thermal camera that we're putting out. I think there's 8 of them built now, and there's motion activated thermal camera that's pretty high tech. We just had a new camera set built for it, and there's a 2.0 version of it out now. So basically anything that moves within around 400 yards of the camera is going to get captured. So hopefully we'll have a one where you can count the eyelashes on it in one of our photos. It gets captured up there. So hopefully that happens. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Matt. I hope I didn't talk your ear off.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I enjoyed it. And if you've had your own encounter with Bigfoot or something else you can't explain, send me an email at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Check out the website, bigfootcrossroads.com. You can find links to social media, past episodes, merchandise, everything you need all in one place. And until next time, remember, there's something in the woods.